And for more about the General Assembly and President and Prime Minister and Premier Li Keqiang's speech, we are now joined by our correspondent Nathan King from New York. Hello there, Nathan. Premier Li said China has submitted plans to implement the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. And how has this plan been received among other countries? And also, Li pledged further financial support to aid refugees. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, let's take the refugees first, because remember, that's how the week started. We had one but not two summits on refugees and migrants. The first one organised by the United Nations to try and bring the world together to recommit to taking in more refugees and respecting their rights, and encouraging countries that have resisted taking in refugees to do more. And before that, Premier Li Keqiang during that time pledged an extra $100 million on top of already received pledges to help refugees and migrants. And then there was the second summit brought together by the President of the United States, US President Barack Obama, where a leadership summit where world leaders were asked to make pledges as well. And at that one, Premier Li Keqiang said that they, through the South-South mechanism, which will help southern countries like South Sudan and others, pledged $50 million increments up to about $200 million. So the total pledge was about $300 million by China. And considering the US had asked for a total of about $3 billion, that's about 10% of the total. Now, onto the Sustainable Development Goals. That is actually the theme of the UN General Assembly this year. Remember, they were adopted last year, a 15-year plan to rise all economies together more equitably and also strive for a greener and more inclusive planet at the same time. And Premier Li Keqiang told the General Assembly world leaders in his speech in the last 24 hours that China had already started implementing its agenda.
China is among the first countries to submit its own plan to implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The foundation of sustainable development is development itself. Sustainability has no meaning without development. Many problems around the world are caused by the lack of development, including poverty, the refugee crisis, wars and conflicts, as well as terrorism. We need to find the root causes of these problems and solve them through development.
Right, and Nathan, Premier Li has met with the former U.S. Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson and former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Would you please tell us more about that meeting? What has been discussed?
Yeah, also he gave a speech in front of the Economic Club of New York, very influential financiers, one of the most influential groupings here in New York. I think it was the highest profile speech that by any Chinese leader here in the United States this year. But yes, there was also a meeting with former Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson, who was also head of Goldman Sachs for a while before he became Treasury Secretary during the financial crisis, I would add, and also billionaire former Mayor Mike Bloomberg. And that was really a meeting to stress China's economic reforms are on track, to talk about the progress of the bilateral investment treaty, which, as you know, has taken a long time. And he also made a little bit of a joke about how US companies saw China as a potential big market.
China and the United States don't just have stable political ties, but also enjoy very close business cooperation. I was told that every second of every day, a Chinese is buying an iPhone product. And maybe when that Chinese customer is buying this iPhone, he's not aware that the real big Apple is New York City.
And of course, the Big Apple is New York City, and I think also Chinese businessmen might like to think that they could sell more Huawei products rather than Apple products here in America. And that's where a lot of these conversations are talking about. And Li Keqiang, in his speech here at the UN General Assembly, really said that China will continue with its planned economic reforms. Opening up is the way to go. Said China has learned from its history to close off leads to stagnation, and also encourage the world to embrace globalization, because in the end everybody wins together, whereas protectionism does not do that.
Well, Nathan, Premier Li also met with the French President Francois Hollande. Do you have any details on their discussion?
Yeah, you talked at the top about the Hinkley Point nuclear power station investment in the United Kingdom. And of course, this is a three-country cooperation. Remember, the deal was inked during President Xi's state visit to the UK, but there's been a change of government since then. Theresa May, the incoming Prime Minister, put a review on that, and that worried both French and Chinese and the UK that somehow this multi-billion-dollar, many-decade-long project may change in some way. But that has now been given the go-ahead. Security concerns have gone ahead, so it's full steam ahead. So I think their meeting was very much about getting that deal ahead. It's not just that deal. Remember, France is a leader in nuclear power. Nearly 3/4 of its energy comes from nuclear power. China, of course, is building more and more nuclear power stations as it moves its mix of energy away from fossil fuels. So this is one area where China and France have a lot of technical know-how to share, as well as how to finance these deals going forward.
Thank you very much. Nathan King will be getting back to you in a short moment in the program about more on the General Assembly of the United Nations.